What if I told you that your life doesn't need years to change, it can shift in a single moment? Not because your circumstances change, but because you do. There is one mindset shift, just one, that has the power to break limitations, dissolve fear, and unlock a version of you that you haven't met yet. And once you see it, once you truly understand it, there is no going back. Most people spend their lives waiting for the perfect time, the right opportunity, the moment when everything finally feels aligned. They tell themselves they'll start when they feel ready, when they have more confidence, or when circumstances improve. But the truth is that moment rarely comes. Waiting creates an illusion of safety, but in reality, it keeps you stuck. The shift happens when you realize that nothing external is going to magically change your life unless you decide to change your approach. Instead of waiting for opportunity, you begin to create it through action, even when it feels uncomfortable or uncertain. Creation starts the moment you take responsibility for initiating movement, no matter how small it is. You stop asking for permission and start trusting your ability to figure things out along the way. This doesn't mean you'll have everything planned or that you won't feel fear. It means you move forward despite those feelings. When you act, you generate momentum, and momentum builds clarity. The more you create, the more opportunities begin to appear, not because they suddenly exist, but because you've shifted your focus and behavior. Waiting keeps you passive, but creating puts you in control of your direction and growth. It transforms you from someone who reacts to life into someone who shapes it. Over time, this mindset builds confidence, resilience, a sense of purpose, because you're no longer dependent on external validation or perfect conditions. You begin to understand that progress is something you generate, not something you receive. And in that realization, you unlock a level of freedom and power that changes everything. Most people give away their power without even realizing it by blaming circumstances, other people, or past experiences for where they are in life. It feels easier to point outward and say, "This happened to me," or "They caused this," because it removes the pressure of responsibility. But the moment you choose blame, you also give up control. The shift begins when you understand that responsibility is not about guilt or self-judgment. It's about reclaiming your ability to respond, decide, and move forward. When you take full responsibility, you stop focusing on what went wrong and start focusing on what you can do next. You no longer wait for others to change or for situations to improve before taking action. Instead, you ask yourself, what is within my control right now? That question alone can change your direction. Responsibility turns you into an active participant in your life rather than a passive observer. It builds inner strength because you begin to trust yourself to handle challenges instead of avoiding them. Even when things are unfair or unexpected, choosing responsibility allows you to find a way forward rather than staying stuck in frustration. This mindset doesn't ignore difficulties. It transforms how you deal with them. You stop seeing obstacles as reasons to quit and start seeing them as situations to navigate. Over time, this creates a sense of ownership over your life, where your results are shaped more by your actions than by external factors. You become more focused, more resilient, and more intentional with your decisions. And as you continue to take responsibility for your choices, your habits, and your growth, you begin to realize that the power to change your life has always been in your hands. Most people live trapped between two places that don't actually exist, the past and the future. They replay old mistakes, regrets, and missed opportunities, or they worry about what might go wrong, what could happen, and whether things will work out. In doing so, they lose the only moment where life is actually happening, the present. The past cannot be changed, and the future is not guaranteed, yet both consume enormous mental energy. The shift happens when you realize that your power, your ability to act, and your capacity to change your life only exists right now. When you bring your focus fully into the present moment, you stop being controlled by what has already happened or what might happen. Instead, you begin to take intentional action based on what is in front of you. This doesn't mean you ignore lessons from the past or stop planning for the future. It means you stop living in them. The present is where clarity is built, where decisions are made, and where progress begins. When you focus on what you can do today, even in small ways, you create momentum that naturally shapes your future. At the same time, you free yourself from the emotional weight of the past because you're no longer constantly reliving it. Being present sharpens your awareness, improves your decisions, and increases your ability to respond effectively to challenges. You become more grounded, more focused, and less overwhelmed because your attention is no longer scattered across things you cannot control. Over time, this mindset creates a sense of calm confidence, knowing that as long as you take action in the present, you are moving forward. And in that awareness, you begin to understand that the present moment is not just a passing point in time, but the only place where real change is possible. Perfection is one of the most convincing illusions that keeps people stuck. It disguises itself as high standards or careful planning. But in reality, it often becomes an excuse to delay action. People tell themselves they need more time, more knowledge, or a better version of their work before they begin. They wait until everything feels just right, but that moment rarely arrives. The truth is, perfection is not a requirement for success. Progress is. When you shift your focus from doing things perfectly to simply doing them consistently, everything begins to change. You start taking action even when you feel uncertain, and that action creates momentum. Momentum is what builds confidence, not waiting. Every small step forward teaches you something, improves your skills, and brings you closer to your goal. Mistakes stop being something to fear and become part of the process. Instead of avoiding failure, you begin to use it as feedback. This mindset frees you from the pressure of getting everything right the first time and allows you to grow naturally over time. When you prioritize action over perfection, you also become more adaptable because you are constantly learning and adjusting. You stop overthinking and start experiencing, which accelerates your progress in ways that planning alone never could. Over time, these small and perfect actions compound into meaningful results. You begin to see that what truly matters is not how flawless your start is, but how committed you are to continuing. This shift builds discipline, resilience, and a stronger belief in your ability to improve. And as you keep moving forward, you realize that perfection was never the goal. It was the progress you made along the way that truly transformed you. Most people focus entirely on outcomes. They set goals based on what they want to achieve, what they want to have, or how they want their life to look. While goals are important, this approach often leads to frustration because it overlooks the most important factor, who you need to become in order to achieve those results. The real shift happens when you stop obsessing over outcomes and start focusing on your identity. Instead of asking, "What do I want?" you begin asking, "Who do I need to become?" This changes everything because your actions naturally follow your identity. If you see yourself as someone disciplined, you act with discipline. If you see yourself as confident, you begin to take bold steps. Identity shapes behavior, and behavior creates results. When you focus only on outcomes, motivation comes and goes, but when you focus on identity, your actions become consistent because they align with who you believe you are. This also means you stop relying on external validation to measure your progress. Instead, you measure success by whether you are showing up as the person you are committed to becoming. Over time, this builds a strong internal foundation, making you less affected by setbacks or delays. You begin to understand that results are not random. They are a reflection of repeated actions driven by identity. As you continue reinforcing this new identity through daily choices, your habits start to change, your standards rise, and your confidence grows. The outcomes you once chased begin to appear naturally as a byproduct of who you have become. And in that realization, you see that lasting change doesn't come from what you achieve, but from the person you decide to be every single day.